Ready.
Welcome to episode 46 of the Go Get 'em Agility podcast. My name is Margaret Hughes, and I'm your host, along with my daughter, Emma. Hi, Emma.
Hi. Hi.
So we are talking about our top, what did we say? Top 5 things that we think every dog should know, right? Where the top 5 things that if you were to only give 5 things for somebody to learn, your top 5, my top 5 for the dog to learn dog skills, and then mechanics, handler mechanics, right? The top 5 handler mechanics we would want the handler to have. Okay, so who's going first?
I think you should go first because I don't have my 5th dog one yet.
Oh, okay. All right. So if I was to give somebody one thing, okay. So yeah, are we going in like order of importance?
Oh, I wasn't. I was just like, here's a list of things you should know. They might be of different importance, but it kind of depends on who you're talking to.
True. Okay. So this is not in any specific order.
Right.
Okay. So my very first thing that I would want a dog to learn, understand, and be really proficient at is to understand where heel position is, how to get into heel position, how that heel position is highly rewardable on both sides, and how to walk in heel position on both sides. So heel position, do I need to define that? Do I need to explain what that is? I guess
yeah, maybe.
Okay. All right. So heel position is the dog's head, ears, shoulders, feet in line with the handler's hips, ankles, feet on, if both facing the same direction on either side.
Yeah.
Right. So learning how to come into that position, how to get into that position from up close, and how to get into that position from far away. So we're talking like and things that impact start line setups.
Oh yeah.
And then extension into collection, movement with the handler between obstacles when you're just practicing, right? So they don't just go off and take something. Right. All right, so that's one of mine. Getting into heel position, staying in heel position, walking in heel position, running in heel position, moving into heel position when they're in front of you, moving into heel position when they're at the side of you, and getting into heel position when they're behind you. Both sides. Yeah. Okay, that's.
Are we going to go back and forth, or are you going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
So let's go back and forth.
Oh, okay. And we're doing dogs.
Yeah, we're doing dog stuff first.
Okay. I said motivation. This can kind of be as a handler figure. This is more handler focused, but it is about the dog specifically. So I figured it was okay to put under dogs. I wrote motivation and dash figure it out. And so what I meant by that is that I meant that dogs are all different, and I know we say this all the time, but Dottie hates toys. And so if I had, picked her up as a puppy and said, okay, you're going to be a toy dog, that is only how I'm going to train you, we probably would not have had a very successful agility career, or maybe she would have, been trained into it. But my point is that if you're starting agility, you have to figure out what makes your dog tick. And Mom and I actually had a really interesting conversation because I was yammering on about how a lot of people think that praise is a good enough motivation for their dog, and I had disagreed with that, but apparently there's been a new study that's come out that dogs expect the praise happy endorphin chemical that's a bigger part of their brains than cheese or food or whatever, the anticipation of rewarding. You have to figure it out. You live with your dog. You see each other 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is your housemate. I would really hope that if you're living with an entity in your house, you would know what they like and what they dislike. And that is key to agility. And so if praise is your thing, do it.
I think that you brought up a really good thing because sometimes what we think is motivational to a dog is not.
Especially in the beginning of agility, especially if they're an older dog, so maybe 2 years or older, because agility is not fun in the beginning. It's not. They're like, what is this? Why would I go over this jump for you, only for you to say, good job, and continue on? What is in it for them? When they're puppies, it's a little bit different because puppies like everything. But especially an older dog, they don't get why we're doing this in the beginning. It's not fun in the beginning, so you have to make it fun.
Yeah. So I really like, yeah, motivation, and motivation comes in so many different forms. So I wrote up a dog play sheet that I'm using with my foundation students, and I did play without toys and then play with toys, and learning what works for your dog is so important. So just I wrote out a whole bunch of things, but that doesn't mean that all of these things are going to work for all dogs. And so finding out what works for your dog. So one of the things that I do is personal play with Eli, where he's allowed to jump up at me and I kind of push him back. And but that personal play can tip over into over arousal, right? And so I have to know at what point do I need to drop it back down, and learning that some dogs you can let them get away with a lot more like bitey stuff
Mm-hmm.
because it helps build up their motivation, whereas other dogs it takes them to out into the stratosphere and they're over aroused. And
Right.
so learning your own dog's motivation, whether it be food, toys, personal play, chase games, all of that is so so important.
When people have dogs that don't particularly like praise or toys and they go for the food route, sometimes dogs, especially if they're full, they, as in they've just had dinner or whatever, they won't care about agility because they don't care about food because they've just eaten. And so it is really important to skip meals when you're doing agility. And I don't mean this as starve your dog. That is absolutely not what I mean. But I mean that work dinner into play, into agility, if that is their motivation, if food is their motivation, um, because it strengthens their brain and it gives them dinner.
Yeah, can you imagine having dinner and being full and then going and running a 5K and people keep shoving more food at you at each stop and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I think I'm going to vomit. Would you stop
Yeah,
giving me food?" So,
right,
yeah. And there's a temperate of if you don't feed them, maybe they actually get sick because they have nothing in their stomach. So,
right. So it's a
yeah, it's a balance between, okay,
mhm.
here's a little bit of food to settle your stomach, but I also want you to not be overloaded with food that you want to poop, that you
Yeah,
feel like you're gonna vomit if you bounce too much. So yeah, there's learning how much to give your dog prior to training or training them in between meals.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely feeding, and the smaller the dog, you have to be even more careful sometimes,
yeah,
depending on the type of dog. But uh, yeah, knowing how much, when, and all of that, and if they're overweight, trying to drop that weight at the same
yeah,
time that you're trying to reward
yeah.
stuff.
Especially in the off season, if you're coming, if you have a break. So like Dot has a break because I'm in school, and so I get through that her off season. So obviously she's one not well versed in agility right now, but also she's probably gained a little bit of weight, which is fine. But it's that balance of okay, let's get you back into agility, but let's also get you back to a weight that we like.
Yeah, while
Yeah.
keeping motivated.
Yes.
All right, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. My second one would be I would absolutely have every new dog learn the two target game.
Oh, you like that game, don't you? That
Oh,
was a discovery. That was an Eli discovery, wasn't it?
no, no, no. I've done the
Was
two
it not?
target. No, I've done the two target game for a
Oh,
long,
which one
long time.
are you not talking about this one where you go like boop, 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 boop. You sit in a chair, you have a target on
Yeah,
either side of you.
that's the one I'm talking about.
Ah, you knew about that before. You did that before the boy.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't. How come I didn't do that?
I don't know. Yeah, you didn't?
No,
You never did that with Dottie, huh?
no.
I did it
I
with
was also 14 and convinced that I knew everything about the world, so that might have been it too.
that's true. Yeah, the two target game. Some people call it Vito's game. It's a thinking game. It's a guessing game, and
It's a
it
great game.
it's a fantastic game. If you don't know what two targeting is, absolutely start it because it's very, very powerful in training other things with agility, but they have to have the basis of the two target game. So it's essentially teaching a dog to go back and forth between two target plates. And as they get stronger and faster, you move the target plates a little bit further away from each other until they're moving, 2 or 3 feet between targets. And then you start putting obstacles or things that they have to go around, through, over, between the two target plates. I use it.
Hmm.
So I start with the two target plate game and then it goes into building value for obstacles. So I use it on jump stanchions. I use it on tunnels. I use it on the tire jump. Love it on the tire jump. Um, I use it on travel planks. So I'll do like movement puzzles using Vito's game. Use it around how I taught my running contact, beginning of my running contacts. So much use with the two target game.
If people want to look this up, is it Vito, Veto,
No,
Vito's game?
Vito.
Oh, okay,
Vito.
Vito,
Yeah, I'm pretty
Vito's
sure
game.
that was the name of a dog. But I've called it, so even before I knew it as Vito's game, I called it the two target game. So, or two target plates. I called it a bunch of different things, but it's essentially going between two targets. And when I say a target, I'm talking about a yogurt lid or a cottage cheese lid. Uh, and it literally, and then eventually the targets disappear. So I've seen people use it with dishes as well. So the two dish game, I've seen people use it with dishes. I've seen people use it with targets. And then eventually the food can just be on the floor or it can even be from your hand eventually. But you don't want it to start in your hand because you want the obstacles to become important and it creates a pattern. So it's a pattern game, and pattern games can be very powerful in teaching um, value for obstacles because the dog is guessing. And when they guess right, they're given a reward. And if they guess wrong, there's nothing. So the pattern really helps to establish value for the obstacles. Next.
I said foundations, and I will expand on that to specifically contact foundations. And that might just be because I've been once bitten, twice shy about my lack of foundations with contacts and how that has led to a struggle. But um, I think that I always have remained the fact that I do think that you can teach an old dog new tricks, especially contacts, but they are hard. They are so hard if you get past like the 3 year mark to fix. And so by foundations, I mean teaching them like the wobble board, the little pod game, teaching them that they have back feet, teaching them
What's the pod game?
with you have 4 little balance pods and you teach them to put their feet on it. They can balance all 4 kind of in a stack. I think you did it with Eli. I know I did it with Dot.
I tried it with Eli and I didn't like it, so I stopped doing it. And I went to the bigger balance pods with 2 feet on one balance pod. So
Okay, well, I liked it with Dot, and maybe that's just it.
Yeah, maybe
Depends on
because she
the
was
dog.
smaller.
Well, she was smaller and she was older, so she kind of knew what the game was. But my point
Oh,
was
okay.
that just teaching them that they have feet
So
because dogs don't know that they have feet.
So getting on things.
Yeah, you could also do the pause up game, and so that was really popular with Dot. She loves that game. You can have them pause up on rocks, on tables, on chairs, on sidewalks, on everything, on your knee. Um, And it's, of course, that goes into the actual contacts itself, but it kind of just teaches them to be okay with getting, like you said, getting on top of foreign things.
Yeah, so let's name out so you named some things. So you said rocks.
Yeah, well, tables were pretty popular with Dottie. What
I like
else?
I like feed bins. So livestock feed bins. They're small rubber buckets that they're
Yeah,
like 4 inches
and
high. Those are really
this is
great,
both.
both in getting
Uh,
in them and getting and inverting them, getting on top of them.
this is also for both front and back feet.
Right.
So
Boxes,
boxes are good.
Costco boxes.
Car bumpers are good. I have a ton of pictures of Dot on car bumpers, on my car bumpers, not anybody else's.
In fact,
What
that's
else?
one of so that is a one of the skills that I use for Eli when he comes out of the car. He comes out of his crate, turns around and get puts his front feet on my back bumper to reward
Yeah,
him to prevent him from going out and looking at other stuff. So yeah,
yeah.
very valuable.
It's good. You just kind of have to be careful, I think, of if you have a small dog, don't have them be going up on picnic table benches, or things that are tall, because or you can modify it. I have a
Yeah.
video of you asking Jinx to back up with his back feet onto an ottoman, couch ottoman, and it's tilted upwards, so he can easily put his back feet on it.
Yeah.
And it works as well because I think you did it for going to Tulsa. So this time 3 years ago,
Yeah.
you made a whole thing on reteaching Jinx's contacts, and it's like a light switch. The 6 month difference. It is incredible to see how you retrain those foundations and
Yeah.
how much
I
they
went
work.
right back to the very, very, very beginning of his um foundation contact stuff. Yeah, getting on stuff, stopping 2 on 2 off. Yeah, I did running into a box and he has to keep his back feet in the box, back the front feet out of the box. I was going for 2 on 2 off. So yeah, that's a great one. I like that one. And focusing not only on front feet but back feet. And I did a lot of going backwards on stuff, right? So backing up onto different things. And the human balance pods are great as well for dogs. You don't have to be dog specific.
Yeah. I wonder, have you ever thought about those, those giant exercise balls? If you were to make one stable so it's not rolling around, I feel like that'd be a good one.
Yeah,
Just because they're so easy to make squishy or hard.
yeah, people use PVC boxes to
Yeah.
stabilize those. I've seen.
Yeah, like a bike stand almost.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we've got okay. So you did your first one. What was your first one?
My first one was motivation, and then I did foundations. And so now we're on number 3.
Okay, and I did heel position and the 2 target game.
Yeah.
Oh, I also so one of mine was getting on things, so we cross over there. Yeah, so
Oh,
mine was getting on
it's
things. So
like
that
it's like
yeah,
mother daughter. That's
that
crazy.
that goes yeah, and getting on thing. When we say getting on things, always make sure that your dog is enjoying getting on them. Like
Right,
you should
yes.
not be forcing your dog onto anything. They should be willingly getting up on things, and you reward them for doing so. So yeah,
Yeah.
no fear involved. Watch your dog's fear. If they're backing off, if you're having to lure them up, if you're having to trick them into getting onto something, then you're doing it wrong. Don't it should be the dogs willingly come into getting on things. All right. I my other one is teaching dogs just to learn, teaching them that they can learn. And so trick training, just teaching your dog a ton of tricks that trust me, almost every trick that is out there somehow benefits agility. So teaching them to sit pretty, that's strength core training. Teaching them to spin and twirl, go both directions. There's the beginning of your turns and your side changes for that matter. Teaching them to back up, your contact training. Teaching them to catch a cookie. So throwing a cookie at them and they catch it midair. That's a great way to transport your dog across the arena, keeping them in attention. Teaching them to chase a cookie and come back to you. That is a very powerful get it, go grab it, run back to me. That's a great attention, keeping them in attention thing. What other tricks have you taught Dot that directly?
Um, I have this on my list, so we can just segue into my little list. The rear cross game, which was probably not invented by me, but I like to take credit for it. And it is teaching your dog to do a rear cross motion on the flat, so with no agility around you, with the flick of your wrist. And I understand that you probably won't use this little, cute little flick of your wrist when you're actually doing agility, but it gives them the motion and it gives them what your pressure feels like when you want to change sides. And it's fun. They kind of like doing it. It's kind of hand in hand. It's kind of the opposite side of the same coin as the spin game.
Right.
It's just you're not doing a full rotation and you are learning to walk in one direction, flip about face basically, and then run in the other direction. It's really good for walking. So I do it in hallways a lot. So I will do it in hotel hallways. That's really the only one I can think of. In I guess the house hallway, but our hallway isn't really long enough.
Oh,
but it's really good for doing like backyards.
Yeah, you used to do this literally anywhere and everywhere. And
yeah, it's so fun.
You loved the way that your dog is like you were dancing with your dogs. And you do it going down the street. You do it. I mean, we live on a big empty cul-de-sac, and so you could run down the middle of the street on our cul-de-sac, and you would run and just flip your dogs back and forth, like a big zigzag all the way down the street. I remember you doing it coming towards us in a field we were just in a big open field, and I'm like, hey, Em, come back here. And as you're running back to us, you're doing rear cross flips all the way
like fakes at the time.
So dear. You love them. And I think that the mechanics that the dog learns in doing those is extremely valuable.
It teaches them to turn away from you because dogs don't like to do that. They don't, or when they're learning it, they don't like to turn away from you. And so it teaches them that it's okay. And it teaches them how to flip their head in one really quick practiced motion.
Yeah. Yeah. And start slow, right? But no equipment. Just do it on the flat. Yeah. On the flat means no equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just teaching them the mechanics of that is really, really good. All right. And then, chasing games. So, and when I say chasing games, I kind of segue this back into my heel position. So chasing into heel, right? Like, so you can include the name game in it. You can include circle work with it. But them chasing you, and as they catch you, they're coming into heel position, right? So they're not doing flybys. They're not running past you, but letting them chase you across a field and then come into heel for a reward, either a toy reward or a food reward. But yeah, letting them chase you and play with you when they get to you. So they don't chase you and then run past you. They chase you and come into heel with you or into play with you. And you're connected with them all the way through the chase game. All right. So let's just go real quick over what we said for the dogs. So we had learn about heel position. Then you had motivation.
Yeah.
Then I said the 2 target game.
Then I said contact foundations.
Yeah. So getting on things. And I agreed with you on that one.
Cool.
Then I said chasing. Or no, I said how did I say chasing or how to learn?
I don't think you said anything about chasing.
Yeah, teaching them to chase you. And including that with like the name game and coming.
Oh, yeah, the name game with motion. Okay, yeah.
And then what did you say after that one?
I haven't said anything, but I did say rear crosses because you
Oh
said
yeah.
rear crosses, and I agreed that that was one of my things.
Yeah, rear crosses. And then I said how to learn. Yeah. Oh, so I said how to learn tricks and all that. And you put in rear crosses as a trick.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So that was anything else?
the ability to settle. That was my last point. Um, and so learning maybe that the crate is a good thing, that the crate isn't a punishment, and that the crate is good to sleep in, especially, and this isn't really even, this is agility based, but it also is very helpful in other aspects of life. So, a dog in the car, learning how to be in the car, learning how to be in a crate in house when maybe when people are over or if you're leaving for whatever reason. Um, but this kind of can be a handler thing as well. I do know, I remember people when they're a bit nervous, they have a tendency to keep their dog on them, like the nuclear football, where it's just like always in a briefcase on their person.
You are so
Um,
right. Yeah.
and that is
So you're saying tight leash, close in,
yes,
forcing the dog
yes,
to just stay close to
yes.
them, not teaching
And
them how
that's
to do
and it's
things.
not even like a waiting. I mean, I get if you're nervous, you're waiting for your turn. That's, maybe 2 minutes in the scheme of the dog's life isn't going to hurt anybody if you're a little bit nervous, so don't feel bad about that. But I mean, like, I know people who don't put their dog away during trials. And that must be so exhausting for the dog. They've just, done an agility course and now they have to hang out and be social. And so I think, I don't know if that's a handler thing or if it's a dog thing, and I'm basing it off of a dog thing because I'm assuming that they might not do well in the crate. And I'm saying that you should teach crate games. So put food in there, put a bully stick in there, put a peanut butter cone in there. Very exciting. Let them sleep, put a blanket over it so it goes dark and they can sleep. Because it's hard if you're doing trials and you start to do really well and you start to do 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and your dog doesn't get to sleep during any of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only the sleep aspect of it, the resting aspect of it, which there's huge benefits to dogs kind of tuning out. It's called latent learning. And that is when dogs can really absorb what just happened in a training session. So, yeah, learning how to come down and be on their own, so much valuable comes from that. Valuable stuff comes from that, not only from a learning standpoint, but also from a building back your body standpoint. And the other thing is a lot of our surfaces that they're standing on is like concrete, right? Concrete or rough gravel, right? And so that can be exhausting for the human body and definitely for the dog body as well. And just not being able to shut their mind off from what's going on around them from a prey standpoint, right? Especially some of our smaller dogs, they're constantly watching other dogs to see if they'll be impacted. So yeah, I think that learning how to settle either in a crate, I think a crate is absolutely most important, but also on a mat, on a cot. Um, yeah, good
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I
so
think that was
that's
it for my dog stuff.
all right. So now let's go into your top 5 things for handler mechanics. Handler mechanics.
Shall I start or do you want to start?
Yeah, no, you go ahead and start.
Oh, goodness. So, I think that you guys probably know that one of my favorite quotes ever is that dogs don't have back feet because they don't think that they do. And that is true. But also, I don't think us as humans know that we have feet. Um, I don't think that we visualize them when we're running our dogs. And I think that that's really important. One, because if anything is going to hit your dog, it's going to be your feet by accident. And that's painful and sad for everybody involved. But also, knowing where you're at in relation to your dog and in relation to the obstacle. So I suppose by when I say feet, I guess it's more of location, but it's just knowing where your feet is, how much space you're giving your dogs, which direction your feet are pointed in. I got this advice from a wonderful, wonderful seminar that I went to where Dottie was not going around the backside of a wrap jump. And I was like, why isn't she doing this? She knows this. We've been doing this for, 3 years. I was very frustrated with it. And the wonderful seminar person who I cannot remember the name of now, I'm so sorry. She's a brilliant EO person. She said, well, you're not putting your feet towards the jump. So why would she care about the jump when you're not even looking at it? I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think she was on anything. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll try it because I'm here. And so we tried it, and I pointed my feet towards the jump, and Dottie got it first time and never got it wrong again. Or in that seminar. And so that was like a really giant eye opener for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, little dogs especially look at your feet a ton. So the little dogs are probably not looking at your hand as much as they're looking at your feet. So
Yeah, and
point
it's
them
not
places.
it is not just little dogs. It is big dogs too.
Yeah.
Especially early on in learning when they're
Hmm.
still learning how to go around a jump stanchion, and more specifically your dog foot, right? So the foot that is closest to your dog is your dog foot or your dog hand, your dog arm, and pointing that dog foot in the direction of the path you want your dog to go on is very valuable. Yeah. So good one. Anything else on it?
On feet.
Yeah.
While we're on that subject, get good shoes. During my rebellious teenage phase, I said, I don't need good shoes. I'll run in Converse, which resulted in a lot of painful knee accidents and also me being very slow on course. Um, and I don't mean you don't have to drop $500 on a pair of shoes, but maybe just get, your entry level running shoes, ones that keep you supported all day, ones that you can walk around a trial in, because trials are really hard to walk around in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. One of my handler mechanics that I want my handlers to learn is how to feed your dog. And what I mean by that is how to feed your dog a singular treat, one treat that they can grab and ingest and then move on to whatever you're doing. So many people don't know how to actually hand their dogs a cookie without it resulting in either a dropped cookie or the dog disengaging from them because of the way that they're feeding them. So, learning how to feed your dog effectively in all different locations. And what I mean by that is dogs in front of you, dogs to the side of you, dogs behind you. Can you rotate your hand around appropriately to feed your dog a singular cookie and keep your dog engaged after that cookie is given? Right. So, learning how to get your hand in and out without losing your dog, how to get the cookie in your dog's mouth and out without dropping it, how to not block your dog's visual while feeding, how to not snuff up your dog's nose while feeding. And on the flip side of this, while you're doing that, you're also teaching your dog the mechanics of how to take a treat, right? Some dogs are so slobbery and so tongue ridden that they don't actually even know how to take a cookie. They haven't learned how to mechanically pick up a cookie from your hand. And then for some dogs, how to pick up a cookie from the floor. So, learning how to do that, how to hand your dog a cookie, a singular cookie, takes practice. And I encourage you, if you feed your dogs anything but mushy raw, to do this with their food, just one kibble at a time, or um, one. I don't know how you do it with soft food. I guess that's much harder. But yeah, teaching your dog how to take a singular cookie and then come back for more and not lose your dog. Next.
Nice. Okay. I said eye contact while moving. And so that is kind of an advanced move, I suppose. This is assuming that you are starting sequencing, particularly out of contacts and out of tunnels, just because their dogs are less inclined to look at you when you're doing those things. And so a lot of beginning people will wait for their dog to complete the obstacle, make eye contact, and then we start moving. And we all know in a foot race who's going to win, not you. So it's important to have that look over your shoulder and continuing to move.
Yeah, I would start this on the flat,
Yes.
right? I mean, this is part of my circle work is teaching a handler how to keep their dog on the correct side throughout circle work, which is essentially learning how to move in a circle with your eyes to the outside or move in a circle with your eyes to the inside, depending on which side the dog's on. So, and then mixing that up by doing figure eights, adding front crosses into that. And then, yeah, learning how to navigate while looking at your dog. And then if you bring it up into sequencing like you did, in fact, just this last trial that I did with Eli, there were two places where I definitely wanted to connect with him. And so I took navigational points off of the arena that I was in. And one of them had a seam line through the turf. And I'm like, when you get to this seam line, look for him. Right. So I navigated off the seam line. And then another one was a tunnel bag. I used the edge of a tunnel bag. Do not pass this tunnel bag. Look at him, call his name as you travel beyond a jump. So I had to thread myself between a certain tunnel bag and a jump. And I knew if I lined myself up right with the tunnel bag and moved at a 90-degree angle from it, that I would avoid the jump that I was running towards. And so, but I also needed to navigate that jump to my right while looking back over my left shoulder at Eli. So yeah, learning how to do that with or without a dog, very valuable. Yeah. And when I do it without a dog, so I do it in my walkthrough, right? And when you're doing it without a dog, I just visualize where my dog is. So I just drag a shadow ghost visual of where Eli is in relation to me when I'm walking.
Mm-hmm.
But learning to do that at a run is very valuable.
Yeah.
And you're not talking direct eye contact. You're talking more peripheral vision,
No,
right?
yeah, you don't have to, stare into each other's eyes lovingly, but you do have to say, "Hey, I acknowledge that you're there." Just because it lets them know also which side to come up on if you're running and they're coming out of a tunnel, say.
Yeah. And I call those transition points where you have to have some connection with the dog. Otherwise, if you disconnect in that moment, they may pick up the wrong obstacle. They may pick up the wrong side of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. My second one, and again, these are not in any particular order. This is just the order that I wrote down. Oh, and my number 3 was run while looking over your shoulder. So you just covered that one. Okay, my number 2 though was how to move your dog without a leash. And I'm talking at a walk to the start line, resetting for a practice exercise, how to move your dog, how to sit your dog, how to get your dog into heel position without a leash. So, yeah. And when I was learning dog training, this was actually one of the big things just in behavior is can you move your dog throughout the house without physically touching them? Right. And so can you get them off the couch without physically touching them? Can you move them in space without physically touching them? And that was really big early on in my training. And I think it's really powerful in agility is, can you move around the arena, keeping your dog in attention without losing them to the equipment, but without using your leash. And in the beginning, definitely a lot of cookies are involved or toys are involved. But as you progress, those cookies and toys become more intermittent, or you ask for more duration of attention through threading them through the obstacles than in the early days. So in the early days, there was a cookie connected to Eli's nose a good chunk of time. And now I don't need a cookie at all. I mean, he still gets rewarded, but I don't need it. So moving your dog, sitting your dog without a leash. But let me just say that if you need a leash for safety, then by all means, keep the leash on for safety reasons. But that doesn't mean that you should use the leash, right? The leash is just there in case. So it's kind of like when you're towing a car and you have those chains underneath. Those chains are only there to if the trailer unhitches and it's a runaway trailer on the freeway, the chains help to prevent the trailer from attacking other cars.
Nice car metaphor there. That was good. That was good.
All right, what's your next one?
I said videos, and I meant it as video yourself. So one of the biggest things, I'm about to go on a tangent here. One of the biggest things I've ever been taught in as a English major, when I write stuff, that's all I do is write stuff. They say, hey, print it out when you're done. Print it out because you will see things that you didn't see on the computer screen. And it's the same for agility, where you will see mistakes that you didn't feel when you video it. So, and I mean this for practice. I mean it for trials. I mean it for doing one jump work in your living room, everywhere. Because oftentimes I think it's really common to blame the dog for a lot of our mistakes in agility. And dogs don't like to be blamed. Dogs don't like to be wrong. Dogs are not malicious creatures at all, specifically towards humans. So the chances of your dog being wrong on purpose, and being wrong by themselves only is really, really, really slim. And it's probably you, unfortunately. And don't worry, we've all done it.
Even if it's not you on course, it's have you trained for specific convergence? Have you trained for specific distance? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So just watch videos, and you can mute it, if you don't like to listen to their voice.
I was just about to say, make sure.
Oh, well, then X that out then, because actually you're right, because then we could do like timing of verbals and stuff. So never mind.
Yeah,
never mind. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, and learning how to view mistakes on video, I think does take time. And so because I see people that video their runs and like, oh, the dog did this, the dog did that. And it's like, well, let's really examine your positioning at the moment the dog went wrong. Right. And so when I'm looking at video playbacks, one, I listen to the verbal. When was my verbal in relation to the next obstacle? Was it given in enough time? And this is where you have to know your dog, because the faster the dog is, the sooner the verbal needs to come, even 2 obstacles back, right? And so are you giving your dog enough time to take the information in? Are your verbals clear enough for the dog to understand? And then again, also just timing of how long your dog's been doing something. So if they're very new to the game, then the timing is going to be off. The timing may be on and they still don't get the skill. Not a big deal. There's just more time in the saddle that is needed. But knowing when you said something in relation to a mistake, your location in relation to a mistake. So as soon as the mistake starts to happen, the dog starts to go off the path of the intended path, stop the video, look at what the dog's looking at, look at your location in relation to that. Where was your verbal in relation to that to help pinpoint the timing that is needed for the dog? And then some things just are young dog things that can cause dogs to go off course or refuse or stuff like that. I keep kind of cutting in on your points because they're so good, and
Well,
I want to give
oh,
my
you're so
opinion on
nice
them.
to me. No, but I think that you have a little bit more experience than me in that regard. Especially it's fresh in your mind because you've just raised a baby into the agility world. So it's kind of fresh in your mind. I'm going back on things that I haven't seen in 6 years, especially baby stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. I had my number 4 point. It was kind of a joke at first, but now it's not. It was joy and love. Um,
What
and
was it?
joy and love.
Joy and
Um,
love.
yeah, and then I said rear crosses after that, but we already talked about rear crosses, and the ability of like, as a handler to do that. But it's a game. It is a goofy, expensive, kind of annoying, really fun, addicting game, and that's all it is. One NQ is not going to ruin your life, the same way that getting on EO is not going to make your life. It is not. So it's okay not to do well, but it's okay to do well, but don't let it rule your life.
Mm.
I kind of let it rule the beginning of the Dottie dynasty, and I think that I was a little bit too harsh on her for her mistakes, and I obviously wasn't cruel to her or anything, but the joy and love was more of a competitive joy and love than it was a hey, I have a dog and that's really cool kind of joy and love. And so I'm hoping, for well, I know for you and Eli, it was a long game of okay, this is going to be with us for 15 years. This dog's going to be with us for 15 years, so might as well make it good, right? Make it a good 15 years and a happy
There's
15
nothing
years.
wrong with being competitive. It's just
No,
you can't let it overtake your training.
no. And I think that by join love, I also meant take things very slowly. Dottie had a bit of a timeline on her. I was like, I want to get her to EOJ because I'm turning 18. And so I need to, get her on that team. And she did brilliantly. She was an epic little dog, and she was okay with the timeline that was bestowed upon her by the gods, the agility gods.
Even though you have a certain timeline that you may want to follow, is keep in mind the dog's not on that timeline.
Yeah. And I was also going to bring social media into it a little bit, because we don't really talk about social media and agility, and we talk about it everywhere else. We talk about it in the car community, we talk about it in the mental health community, we talk about it in literally every hobby. Not that mental health is a hobby, but I meant like, things that you do. We talk about it in literally every hobby ever except agility. And it's kind of strange to have a 2-year-old dog, right? And maybe you've just gotten into agility, you're just starting the foundations, and you go online and you go and look at all these people that have been doing agility forever, and they've got a dog that's the same exact age as you, and they're at EO tryouts. That is a really weird feeling to have. That is a really panicky feeling to have because you
It's a
feel like you're
what
falling
feeling?
behind.
It's a
It's a panicked feeling,
oh,
or at least I feel like it's a bit pressurizing, because social media agility is really easy to not talk about on social media. So your bad runs are really easy to not talk about, like super easy. You just don't even post on Facebook, right? And then the next week, when you get 6 out of 6, that's when you post on Facebook, right? And I'm not saying that you should post your bad runs because that's not great either to for your mental health or whatever. But um, having an NQ doesn't break your career, but neither does going to EO doesn't make your career.
yeah.
So don't let the joy and love get lost, because that's the only thing that remains between those two ends of the spectrum. That's the only constant that you can have.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you struggle with NQing, and bad training sessions, bad weekends in competition, then in general you're going to struggle with agility altogether, because the road to training agility is so bumpy. There's so many mistakes that are made, and not every dog is EO material. Even wicked fast, amazing looking dogs are not EO material because they don't have the impulse control, especially early on. And so what did we say earlier? The magic age for agility dogs
Mm-hmm.
is like 5
Yeah,
years
we were going to
old.
make that our podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, and while that definitely used to be true, that the age of 5 was like the magic number, 5 years, 4 years of training, 5 years of training, all of a sudden your dog starts to emerge. While that's not necessarily as prevalent today, because I think we've gotten savvier about foundation training. So I think that agility is coming together faster, closer to 2, 3 years. The mental maturity of dogs really holds true to 5 years, right? There's a great shift in dogs' mentality around the age of 5, where they can handle the pressures of agility day in and day out much more so than a 2-year-old can. All right, my next one was be okay with experimenting. Be
That
okay.
was my next one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, be okay with trying something different. Be okay with the dog getting it wrong when you do try something different and it doesn't work out. Don't throw out all your training just because it didn't work once, but experiment with distance, experiment with different handling techniques, experiment with harder entrances to tunnels, experiment with your dog and let the dog win regardless of how the experiment goes down. But you may learn something when you're videoing it, going back to Emma's videoing, you may learn something that you don't see on the field that you see in a video. You're like, oh, they really did pick that up. Or, oh, look at the distance that I'm putting on this dog. And so experiment with different things in training, video it, and kind of keep a running tally of what's working and what's not working. Always keeping the dog's confidence in mind while you're experimenting, right? They have to stay confident. But there are a couple of things that I tried, that I experimented with, that I immediately shut down. I'm like, oh yeah, that's not working. And then there are other things I'm like, maybe I have something there. And then it didn't pan out long term. Then I have other things that like, oh yes, that worked. Some of my weave pole training stuff that I experimented with, while I didn't see the immediate effects early on, I definitely hit on some stuff that made a massive difference in Eli's weave poles. So yeah, keep experimenting. And you got another one?
That was my last one, was experimenting. And I had meant it more in a trainer way, as in a seminar way specifically. So there's a ton of seminars all the time, everywhere, about literally everything to do with agility. There's puppy seminars, there's foundation seminars, there's backside only seminars, there's international seminars, there's brief pull seminars, there's literally seminars about everything. And I was never really a seminar kid. I'm still learning how to be a seminar kid, but it's beneficial, and you don't have to do what they tell you. If they say, okay, this is what you should do in your training, and you politely disagree with that, you don't have to do it. But I think it's really good to see other people's ideas, especially if you have the time and money for it, especially people from other countries. In our area specifically, there's a lot of emphasis on European agility, and we get a lot of Europeans doing seminars over here, and they're brilliant. They're absolutely amazing teachers and seminar holders. And I have learned, I would say, 90% of my international skills from these people. And it's really fun. It really is fun. You can take your friends. You can do only a day. You don't even have to take a dog. You can just watch the seminar. You'll
Yeah,
still have to
audit.
pay for
Yeah,
that.
audit the
Yeah.
seminar.
Um, it's amazing. And on that same vein, join Facebook groups, join online stuff, follow people on YouTube. Here's our shameless plug of Go Get 'em Agility on YouTube. um, it's yeah,
We're
it's just
sponsored by Go Get 'em Agility.
exactly. And the best thing about social media in that regard, as well, is that if you don't like it, you can just turn it off. So it's okay. And it's free in some cases. So especially YouTube. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
try things. As long
All
as
right.
they're not dangerous. Don't be dangerous. Don't be silly.
All right. My last one is the mechanics of the handler is learn how to control your dog's nose. So
Ooh, that's a good one.
their nose controls their body. And I'll post a video about this in the show notes, what I'm talking about. But literally, you can move your dog in space using their nose and using specifically them luring around using their nose. And so, learning how to manipulate your hands, this kind of goes back to how to feed your dog, but how to lure your dog using a cookie, manipulating their body by turning their nose. So you can turn them away from you, you can turn them into you, you can keep them straight just by manipulating your hand positioning and how you're holding your hand in relation to their nose. So if you turn their nose towards you, they're going to continue to rotate towards you. And if you want them to turn away from you, you have to learn how to stop turning them into you, which for some people is extremely difficult. So if you learn that their nose controls the rest of their body and you can learn how to manipulate their nose side to side and just practice that, right? Just practice luring your dog. As we're talking, as I'm talking about this, I'm literally moving my hand in just like a side to side. So
I'm being
dog is
hypnotized.
dog is straight. My hand is straight with the dog's nose. If I want to turn them right, I just manipulate my hand to the right side of their nose. If I want to turn them left, I manipulate my hand to the left side of their nose. But
Kind of
learning
like
how,
horse reins. Sorry.
yeah, but learning how to, I'm literally moving my wrist while not moving my elbow, right? And so it's a concept of luring your dog, the mechanics of learning to lure your dog is so valuable. And I don't think that I realize how valuable it is because I've been doing it for so long, but it's so stinking valuable. And I can literally move Eli in a gazillion positions just by the mechanics of moving his nose right, left, or center and learning how to rotate your hand all the way around without losing your dog's nose is extremely valuable for almost every single move that you do in agility is learning how to lure them and manipulate their body over and over and over again. First, very up close, your hands literally in their mouth or in the the pocket between their nose and their mouth. And then over time, your hand is raised up and now it's away from them, but you can still manipulate them because they're so used to following your hand mechanics. So yeah, I'll post a video. I'll definitely post a video of that with showing heel position, how our hands and the way that we feed them manipulates their heel position. And I have another one. I'm pretty sure I have to think about where it is. I have another one that shows how I manipulate rotating the hand around to keep the cookie on the dog. So this is more circle work, cone work. So going around a cone and how to keep your dog in that lure position while going around a cone. All right, is that everything? We did
I
good.
think so. Yeah,
I
that was good. That was good.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right, so just a real quick recap. My mechanics for the handler: how to feed your dog a single treat, how to move your dog without a leash, cookie transports. Yours was how to run while looking over your shoulder, how to run with eye contact, peripheral vision. Another one of mine was be okay with experimenting. And then the nose controls the body, how to lure your dog. What was what were your other ones?
For dogs, I said motivation, foundations of contacts,
No, no, no,
rear
not that
cross.
one. No, the
I
handler
know, but
one.
we didn't do that one either. So I just figured we would go through all of them. And then the ability to settle. And then for handlers, I said your motion, your feet, and their location, um, videos, experiments, good shoes. I think that was it.
I thought there was one more, but
I think there might have been. I forgot. I crossed a bunch of things out and rewrote them. So, all
all right.
right. I
Yeah,
love
I
you.
enjoyed this. I love you too. Happy training. Woof woof.
Bye. Bye bye.
Woof woof.
Oh, woof woof.